his team.
A dedicated young aide named Magnus assisted me.
That's because, in the comics at that time, they had not even yet revealed that his true name was Eric Lehnsherr. So when they admit that Charles would have been a better Chancellor, Magneto begins to remember first hearing of his old friend's dream, like how Rogue recounts Magneto's dream later in the episode.
He even had plans too, Remy. Mutant art, fashion, dance.
As Magneto speaks, we don't see flashbacks, as this show lets Charles live in memory only. We never see Professor Xavier moving or talking. We only hear people's memories of him.
The professor would shout, "Your childish hijinks have cost you 5 demerits, young man."
But the camera does focus on this ice melting in the glass, which I think is symbolizing how the good times are almost over. Change is inevitable and destruction is coming.
Oh no.
So then we get this tender moment where Madeline is kind of pretending to be Jean.
Describe him to me.
This is also similar to how, after Jean came back to life, Scott initially wanted her to be more like the Phoenix, and how deep down, he always wished Madeline was Jean. It all gets very confusing, but I will say that this psychic rapport that they share is just like the one that they have in the comics.
If you'll excuse us, Madeline.
But notice how right away the telepath Emma Frost knows what's up. Actually, in the comics, after Jean dies, I think the second time, Scott and Emma hook up, and then she helps him unleash some of his darker side that I talked about earlier. Magneto asks Rogue to be his Queen of the Council, which throws her into emotional turmoil as she starts to recall their past. Now, like I've mentioned in past episodes, his ability to counteract her powers was first discovered in the alternate universe Age of Apocalypse storyline when the two of them were actually married. But Magneto and Rogue's sexual chemistry goes all the way back to the end of his hero arc, when the two of them were trapped in the Savage Land together. The clothes she wears in the portrait scene are actually the same ones that she wears in this iconic Jim Lee cover. And in the flashback, when Mystique takes her to go see Magneto, we see him in the Savage Land. And in season 2 of the original series, we learn that Magneto built the Citadel there and fashioned it as an early kingdom for himself. And in this flashback, she wears her original green villain suit from the comics. So Gambit and Rogue are the great tragic love story of the X-Men, both the show and the comics. They can never truly be together, but they're both really horny Southerners. There's like this simmering Bible Belt romantic tension between them that exploded when they could finally kiss in the season 2 Savage Land episode.
Gambit loves you.
But now they can finally air out all of their sexual undertones. As she breaks it off with him, he burns the Queen of Hearts, the same card that he dropped when he first saw Rogue with Magneto back in episode 2, and the same card that appears in this Remember It shirt for sale at our merch store. And then we go to the ball. Hey, look up in the sky there! That is the Watcher! Now the Watcher in the show What If always appears during significant events to observe them, so this is showing us that right now, some really important stuff is about to go down in this universe. The song playing at the gala is Happy Nation by Ace of Base, and man, this really brings me back to middle school dances. Now the song is about a utopia with lyrics like Happy Nation, living in a happy nation, where the people understand and dream of a perfect man. The perfect man with the dream being Charles Xavier, the martyr of mutant kind. Person dancing here is Azazel, who in the comics is Nightcrawler's father. This is Archangel, who is a billionaire, so it would make sense that he would be at this hoity-toity event. And then Rogue shows up for a very public demonstration. Her dancing with Magneto is a show of the power of mutant kind, the heights they can climb to. And when he kisses her, this shocks everyone. Because this is also making Magneto seem even more powerful and invulnerable than he ever did before. And then Madeline has a psychic premonition like she did in episode 1. But notice someone shoots a beam at her head. So somebody sent this vision to her mind. We can hear Cable saying, "Turn it off!" Now in her original vision, she touched the mind of Henry Peter Gyrick and saw baby Nate and then a vision of a speaking whirlwind. Not again. And now we know that this whirlwind is actually her son, Cable, communicating to her from the future. The whirlwind is also like the time vortex that we saw in season 2. When Bishop changed the past, this vortex altered the time stream in the far-flung future of the year 4000. In the year 4000. And then Madeline saw the graves of mutants and Master Mold rising from the earth, essentially what happens in this episode. And then they set off an explosion like the blast detonated in this scene. So in this episode's visions, she sees many of these same flashes along with rats, seemingly from the point of view of somebody buried under rubble. Now, I'm wondering if this somebody could actually be Magneto, his point of view after he survives this explosion, and we'll see this scene unfold several episodes down the line. And then the sequence ends with her blood splashing on the floor, foreshadowing the bloodbath that is about to come. But the question here is, who sent her this vision? Was it Cable from the future? Maybe it was Sinister. Or maybe this was her future self, projecting backwards like Shadowcat did in the original Days of the Future Past comics. After Rogue's dance with Magneto, she's underwhelmed, and she repeats Remy's words.
Some things are deeper than skin.
meaning that she finally realizes that she wants to be with Remy no matter what, even if they can't physically touch. Again, this is the great tragic love story of the X-Men. As soon as she realizes she wants him, she loses him.
Oh, happy dagger.
Exactly. So then Cable shows up, and just like we said, he is Scott and Madeline's son from the future, just like he is in the comics. He first appeared in the season 1 episode Slave Island, where he helped liberate Genosha. Now, that actually, him appearing on Genosha, was never referenced again. So now we see that Cable always had an interest in Genosha because he was trying to prevent this mutant holocaust from happening by changing its history. And the first of many, many gut punches in this episode is when they recognized each other.
I'm so sorry, Mom.
And then we see the mutant Marrow, and the channel New Rockstars pointed out that she was on the missing poster in episode 1. Great catch. And then the Sentinels attack, with the new Kaiju Master Mold leading them. Now, it's clear that Gyrick knew way back in episode 1 that this was always the plan.
Did you honestly think we'd roll over and let mutants take over the planet?
That's why that psychic contact affected Madeline so strongly. It's also important to note that she had this vision while she was pregnant with Nathan. So maybe, for all of his life, Cable has been haunted by these visions as well, because he also experienced them while he was in utero. There's a heartbreaking moment here where Rogue looks down at Nightcrawler and realizes she can't touch him to help him. Now, earlier, she was showing off, wearing a sleeveless gown, finally feeling free in her own skin. But now, reality has come crashing down, and she sees that she can never truly be free of who she is and how the world sees her. Everyone realizes that the Morlocks are vulnerable, and this is a loose adaptation of one of the most seminal, important stories ever from the comics, called Mutant Massacre. So in that series, Sinister sent a group of mutants called the Marauders to kill Morlocks in the tunnels of New York, to essentially thin out the mutant gene pool. Those events shook up the X-Men membership for years in the comics, just like how after this episode, the lineup is going to change forever. But Magneto has been here before, and he vows to not live with regret.
We shall not live our days wondering if we could have saved more.
The Xavier statue falls and crushes mutants beneath it, showing how Xavier's dream of peaceful coexistence with humans has actually made mutants vulnerable and led to their deaths. Then Magneto turns the peaceful monorail into a weapon, using it as a whip against the Kaiju Sentinel. So this is bitterly ironic, since the Genoshan slavers used whips to enslave mutants back in season 1, and now Magneto is forced to use a version of this weapon, the weapon of his enemy, to save his people from genocide. Notice in the moments leading up to this, Magneto sees flashes of his time in Auschwitz before declaring,
They shall be avenged!
We see the Morlocks Urge, Annalee, Tommy, and Mask, and we also see Sunder and Ape. And of course, there's beautiful, innocent little Leech. His gift is to drain mutant powers. So by Magneto shielding him, Magneto's actually weakening himself. And then we have his last words to him.
Hab keine Angst.
It's so heartbreaking. Like, Magneto speaks in his native German. And remember, he is a Holocaust survivor who lost his wife and daughter. So this makes you wonder, is this the last thing he said to his daughter before he lost her? Now, I seriously doubt if Magneto is really dead. In the early 90s, after Magneto became a villain again, he was presumed dead for almost 2 years before coming back deadlier than ever. He even pulled all of the adamantium out of Wolverine's body before Professor Xavier was forced to erase his best friend's mind. So I kind of think the show might be building toward that. Magneto will disappear and then resurface, convinced that Charles was a fool, and then Xavier will return from space and have to finally face off against his old friend once and for all. But there is at least one real death in this episode: Gambit. He uses his ability to supercharge objects against the Kaiju Sentinel, knowing this will destroy himself in the blast. But he gets in one last use of his catchphrase that he first threw down in the season 2 finale.
Name is Gambit. Remember it.
Now, I think it's fitting that this Sentinel does not look even remotely human. The other Sentinels, even Master Mold, are made in the image of humanity. But this monster is a symbol of mankind's inhumanity. The idea that a race of people should be eradicated is inherently opposed to what makes us human, which is the ability to connect, to understand, and to share a community with one another. And also notice how Gambit was stabbed in the side, like Christ, before sacrificing his life to save his people. And afterwards, Rogue finally gets to touch Gambit's skin and says this devastating line.
I can't feel you.
I know, buddy. It's a sad one. And when the credits play with the X-Men theme, but softly on piano. And you know, watching the episode a second time, I was thinking back to Trish Tilby's opening monologue, asking how we should perceive humanity.
Some call them monsters, but all over the planet they are known as mutants.
Because that opening monologue poses a question that this finale answers. Humanity will never be able to fully accept mutant kind. There will always be hatred, even when the governments of the world are ready to recognize mutants, or when they're ready to hold a real trial for Magneto. There will always be people who storm the government to demand bloodshed. The head writer and show creator Bo DeMaio said on Twitter, "My plan was that the first half of the season is the OG audience's pre-9/11 days, rife with nostalgia and comfort. Then 9/11, like Tulsa and other mass tragedies, turned the world upside down and reminded us that the whole world is unsafe. He warned us and we did not listen." So let me know, do you think that humans and mutants can peacefully coexist, or are we doomed to a forever war between races? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy. Seriously, I'm not okay.